Hello and welcome to Good Morning Vibrations, a format of the digital TV channel F15. I'm Andrea Glesemann, your host, and I'm happy to start the day with you. Under the theme, The Morning Makes the Day, Diversity Makes the Difference. I'm very pleased to welcome my guest today. It's Stefano Mastrogiacomo. He's author and management consultant and is the founder of tools such as the Team Alignment Map and many more. He has been leading digital projects and advising project teams from all over the world in different international organizations. And recently he has published a book, High Impact Tools for Teams, together with Alexander Osterwalder. And that's what we are basically going to talk about today. It's all about teams, teamwork, how to work effectively, how to avoid communication traps, and so on. So welcome, Stefano. It's absolutely a pleasure having you here today, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Andrea, for hosting me, and welcome to all our listeners and viewers.
Before we start to deep dive into the world of teamwork, I would like to ask you if you have a certain morning routine, because it's the common opinion that successful people have one. So do you have a certain morning routine?
Oh, absolutely. You know, as my name suggests, I'm Italian. And what does an Italian do? The first thing when he wakes up, he has an Italian ristretto. So that is my morning routine. I have a good, strong coffee, small.
Awesome. So as far as I know, you have many expertise in different fields, such as evolutionary anthropology, change and project management, design thinking, and even psycholinguistics. So what led you to the decision to discover all of these different topics?
Oh, that's a fascinating question. Problems. Trying to solve concrete problems while delivering digital projects. So there are, I belong to a very, I believe, strange category of people. Most of us, when we're sitting on a beach, looking at the sea, trying to find some relax, we read novels or listen to music. What relaxes me is to read users' manuals, project management standards. That is, I find it fascinating to see how other people, other teams explain or describe ways of working together more effectively, both in terms of content, but also in terms of description. Because I consider myself mostly as a practitioner, and I spent all these years in academia to understand mainly the problems I was seeing and why applying the tools I had didn't bring the result I expected. So an example of one problem I can give you, and then I enter into all the different fields. I was in a meeting that was a long time ago where an important decision had to be taken for the budget of a big digital initiative. And I was part of the presentation team, and we presented our stuff. And at the end of the presentation, people said yes. They agreed. Now, I saw a contradiction there between the yes they said and their body language. So their body language was closed, almost saying no. And you can feel it in the air. We're good at detecting others' people's attention. I felt they were not really listening. So I was thinking, are they aware of what they've been agreeing? And so it's a series, and I was not very comfortable with that. I had this impression that I had that they were not really with us, or that we had not been clear enough on our side, or their attention was elsewhere for some other reason, that we were not focused all together in the same room at the same time, that yes was not really a yes. And it has been confirmed. Then the problems start. No, but why did you do this way? But they start afterwards. So I developed that kind of feeling that people being really present in the room or not is a KPI for future problems. And I thought, I don't want to enter into these future problems anymore. So what can I do? Using all the beautiful tools I have, I mean, in terms of project management, both waterfall or agile, if you're familiar, with project management tools. What can I do to avoid these problems that I can see will come because people are mentally elsewhere? So when you start thinking about problem like this, there is no easy answer out of the box. You can't just Google people attention in the room and boom, you have something that kind of tells you exactly what to do. That's why I came back. I've always been half, went back to the university, did some research with amazing colleagues, Stéphanie Missonnier, Asbi Advigi. We did amazing work in trying to understand some very basics, some important fundamentals of human coordination and collaboration. And when you enter into a journey like that, the most advanced frameworks, they're not in management. They are, if you want to understand how humans collaborate, well, go and have a look at social psychology, go and have a look at what anthropologists do if you want to get a clue about what culture is, because that's just what they do. And if you want to understand what understanding means, have a look at what cognitive science do and what psycholinguistics in particular do. Psycholinguistics is the discipline in linguistics that is not interesting like how we construct phrases, which is grammar, or how, the etymology. No, it's not that. It's a division of linguistics that is interested in how we use language to do things together. And that is particular. I thought, oh my God, this is super. I have to investigate that area more because, right now we are talking, we are doing an interview, and the principles of psycholinguistics are applying full speed here. And one, as you're nodding with your head, you're giving me signal that we have joint attention. Okay, so how do you bring that beautiful body of knowledge from a discipline that has been studying something you perceive as crucial? How do you bring that back in your discipline that is driven by efficiency, speed? That has been the long journey.
Yeah, yeah. And now you're an expert in this field. And let's be honest, meetings are often perceived as time consuming, exhausting, maybe unnecessary. And why is it like that?
May I be a little challenging here, if you allow me? Yes, meetings are unpopular, and I will suggest that meetings are not the problem. Actually, meetings are a blessing. If you Google media richness theory, or if you go and have a look at the experiments done by linguists, what's in your opinion the most effective communication technology on Earth? Well, it's conversation, dialogue. And no other communication channel can be as effective for humans to create so-called common knowledge, which is mutual understanding. And then a series of processes starts taking place. When we understand each other, well, basically, I know what will be my part in the project, you know what will be your part, but you also know what will be my part, and I know what will be your part. So when we all know what we're supposed to do, but we know what other people are doing, guess what happened in the execution phase of a project? Super efficient. Why? Because from meeting to meeting, when we try to integrate our individual contributions, not only we've been doing our work, understanding what we're supposed to do, but taking into account what other people are doing. Okay? So you see a direct impact of mutual understanding on task performance. And to come back to your question, today we have this amazing technology available, but due to the pandemic, we lost our most effective communication device, which is dialogue face-to-face. And number two, luckily, is video conferencing. And luckily, video conference made huge progress. But we're using the second most effective technology, not the first one. So that makes me think that post-pandemic, we'll get back, we won't continue like that. We will get back to the most effective one. However, practices will change. Then you continue. After video conferencing, you have audio conferencing. All these three are called synchronous communication channels. And then only you start with asynchronous. technologies. So email, chat, etc., etc. And at the very end of the spectrum, you have spam. In terms of channels that help us coordinate effectively. Coordination has Latin roots. I mean, the harmonious functioning of parts. And for a team, I believe to perform to the next level, that coordination must be not neglected. If you wish, I'm bringing with high impact tools for teams and that long journey in coordination, a series of very small tools. I call them plugins. They just work with any method, or if you have no method, no problem, that improve things in the small, in our everyday meeting, in our everyday interactions, because I believe that big success as well as failure happens in the small, in the repetition. You know, success is the accumulation of small wins. And failure doesn't occur overnight. It happens also as the accumulation. That's one of the theses of this book, of the accumulation of misunderstanding. Now, if you want to experience more success as a team, especially delivering complex, challenging projects with people coming from different disciplines, with different languages, it's not a surprise that it's good to take care of the very basics of human communication and human coordination. And the book contains tools that help just do that in a very simple way. The team alignment map, the team contract. Maybe I don't know if you want to discuss about this, but that's why it's called high impact tools for team, because they help everybody, anyone. We worked a lot on the usability of these tools with the amazing strategizer team to make sure that any team member can contribute to basically two things with these tools, that we feel all empowered to do that. More clarity between us about what we have to do, when, what, how, and so on. This is with the team alignment map, and anyone can use it, and that we believe it's anyone's responsibility to keep things clear in the team. And also a second very important topic, if you want to take care of the basics of human coordination, is trust. In particular, a phenomenon described by Amy Edmondson in her seminal work called psychological safety. Psychological safety is just a cousin of trust. Trust is when you feel you can be vulnerable to someone. But psychological safety is the atmosphere you feel in the room when you open the door. Do you feel like a positive vibe or like, oof, it's heavy here? So psychological safety is the perception that every team member that you will be supported by the team in case of failure. And that is particularly relevant for innovation, as we have to experiment and we don't know the answer yet. So you see, these very two preconditions, mutual understanding, mutual clarity, and trust / psychological safety, are very teeny things that I often see are just neglected, not because we want to neglect them, but because we take them for granted. Whereas this is maybe the innovation is the book, is say, no, don't take these things for granted. Go and seek evidence with these teeny tools that we understand each other really, and that there is sufficient trust in the air. So that doesn't mean we have to love each other. That would be beautiful. But I mean, you know, I'm a practitioner, so I know how difficult that is. But there is sufficient trust in the team so that people feel they can speak up. And when you take care of these little basics, you see some, I've been doing this for quite some years now, you see some magic emerge. And the magic has a name, it's called collective intelligence. Imagine yourself contributing to a project where you can say, as a team member, I understand the mission, I understand the goals, I know what I have to do, and I know what other people are doing. I have sufficient resources to do my part and my contribution, my own contribution, and I know that other people also in the team do. And I don't fear any particular unintended consequences. I know that if something goes wrong, we have some kind of risk management in place, and we're going to, like very big difficult things will be taken care of. Well, when you fill in that and you can say yes to all these criteria, I've just described the team alignment map, by the way, well, your contribution becomes optimal. And when everyone contributions is optimal, if you add a trust layer on top of that, as a as a side effect of this, we didn't expect that. We did a study where we measured alignment in teams. We measured mutual clarity and proposed, this was the early experiments of the team alignment map. We did everything to increase mutual clarity, but there was an open question in the questionnaire, and most team members reported they were more motivated and they had more joy of working together, which led us to a very paradoxical conclusion, is that motivation and maybe the joy of being together is not something you provoke by doing an offsite, okay, for motivation. It's something that is a byproduct, a consequence of mutual clarity and trust. You see?
But let's assume there's trust in a team and everyone knows what to do and the mission, the goal, the tasks. There are still different personalities, and as a team leader, how to coordinate and manage the different personalities with different preferences. I mean, some people are more communicative and more visionary and really talk a lot, and other people are like more quiet, and how to handle all of them.
Okay, so the tools are posters or checklists you put in your pocket. Now, very simple, and you don't need to know all the things I'm going to say to practice them. However, in this discussion, it's a very relevant question. They have been created transferring principles from one discipline to the other. And to answer your question precisely, how do we take care of the different personalities? We don't. We don't take care of the, I don't want, the tools are built on also on brief / family therapy techniques, which means that we don't have a look inside you. So your personality is just fine, keep it the way it is. However, the one thing we change is the way we interact. So, and it's a far more non-intrusive way than, putting people in boxes. And you can change something tangible. So you see, for example, an introvert that might not speak out, if you start questioning why are you an introvert, you might enter into an endless looping discussion, and it's maybe not going to have a serious impact on the future. But as a team, and maybe you don't want to do that as a team. However, if we change the dynamics in which we interact, and we start by putting together some rules of the game on a poster. So for example, I asked the question to the team, okay, we are about to enter this project journey now. What are some rules of the game we have to put in between us for this journey to be comfortable for everybody? And also, do you have some particular preferences, individual preferences in ways of working that you'd like to share before we enter the journey? If I ask these two questions, the climate, I create a safe climate where we can have that conversation, then all of a sudden you see that the introverts, at least in my experience, I'm not making a generalization, however, in my experience, they tend to express their opinion because they feel safe. So you see that different personality aspect has been treated by discussing at the interaction level on how we will interact between us. The same for, maybe you can maybe tell that I am an extrovert. If you have to deal with many extroverts, then you also might want to put in place some rule. We speak 2 minutes each. Okay, so this is a way of intervening at the interaction level. And that is what precisely another tool presented in the book does. It's called the team contract. That is something that is, I believe, essential to establish, especially if you work with a cross-functional team that is starting on a new project with people coming from different departments, different ways of working, different expectations, different languages, that we align on the work on the team alignment map, but also that we align on the behaviors to be a good citizen, a good participant, a good team member. We agree on the decision making, we agree on the ways of communicating, and so on and so on. And by describing, making it explicit how we're going to interact in the everyday, you basically take care of the different types of personality. And that's the, I know in psychology there are big schools and there is a fight between these and they see things differently. I've chosen my side. So we are into interactionist perspective.
So when talking about interaction and communication, let's assume there is a project team and there occurs some subliminal issues. How to address the issues in the right way?
Let's actually separate that into categories. We're in a meeting room under pressure. We have to deliver, I don't know, this new work package or sprint by the end of this week. And two things. One scenario is where we all agree, we all feel on the same page, but we have a blind spot. There is something we haven't seen that might cause us harm. Scenario one. Scenario two is we can feel in the room that there is something unspoken and we just pretend as if everything is okay. So I don't know if you can relate that to your experience, and I can. I clearly picture situations where everyone is saying, yeah, things are going well, whereas you know it's not going well. So now why, so these two scenarios are quite different. So I will start with the second one. Well, that second case is the perfect illustration of a lack of psychological safety, the fear to speak up. And people are totally irrational in staying silent because they fear the consequences of saying something. Now, this is, if you go and read the amazing work of Amy Edmondson, and I will never insist enough on her important contribution for innovation in general and for innovation teamwork. Well, for that, you have to reestablish the climate where people speak up. Because when people do not speak up, that triggers, that doesn't allow a very important series of things to happen between us. So if I don't speak up, I'm not sharing key information with you that might give you an idea or might make you aware of something. And then you cannot respond to me. So we do not enable collective understanding. If you do not enable collective understanding, you do not enable collective learning. You do not enable collective intelligence. So at the end, you do not allow the team to solve complex problems, which is what we describe as innovation. So just by the fact of remaining silent, you see a direct impact on the ability to innovate. And this creates teams where we are together alone. Every individual actually is working individually. It's a kind of, in English, we say that pseudo teams, but you have almost the illusion of a team. A group in a room is not necessarily a team. Okay, so that's scenario two. If I go, so in that case, use the team contract, for example, or any other tool that helps reestablish some clarity that you won't be punished and that you can speak freely. That's how you readdress that. And it's true that in some cases, when conflict is important, some other tools might be needed to express anger, for example, in a non-destructive way, but in a constructive way, to express conflict in a positive way. There is another tool in the book called the Nonviolent Request Guide, based on nonviolent communication, that is explicitly designed for that, like how to express disagreement, strong disagreement, in a way that is not judgmental, so that I give you the opportunity to respond. And all these things reestablish trust or a sufficiently safe climate is not something that you can do overnight, but you have to start somewhere. And these tools presented in the book, as well as many others available out there, if used wisely, they help address the second situation, and then you will see that changes. If sometimes the situation is really difficult, you might need an external facilitator.
Yeah,
it happens. Yeah. So that also, and now we've covered the whole spectrum. If I come back to the first situation where there is a blind spot, that happens. We can be collectively enthusiastic in our illusion. And I've experienced that, and I still continue to experience that. So, most of the tools presented in the book, I actually initially, that was years ago, designed them for my own practice, for my own blind spots. And then I saw that there was some adoption, and now years later, it's a book. There is another possibility for the blind spot. And I tried to make the identification of blind spots as fast as possible. When I mean fast, is the identification that there is a problem can be done in 5 seconds, 20 seconds, but then we have to discuss about what's the blind spot. So the team alignment map is one of the key tools presented in the book, a tool that helps us align on what we have to do together, can be used as an assessment system. So if you draw 4 arrows and every team member votes, and the vote is about answering one simple question, is do you think you can contribute optimally to that, to the work ahead? So, and the vote consists in responding in, yes, the objectives are clear for me, or they're not clear. Yes, what everyone is doing and my role are clear or unclear. And then, yes, I believe I have sufficient resources or insufficient resources to do my part. And yes, I believe the risks are under control. No, I don't believe the risks are under control. Actually, they are underestimated. So if every team member votes and you give your perception for your part, it creates a big picture. It's super fast. You can do that also with a voting app. And then to identify the blind spot is about discussing perception gaps. Some people will say, oh, the risk level for me is, no, we're taking care of the risk. And in the room, there is always one that kind of makes a little different vote on one topic. And that's where the blind spot is, 9 times out of 10. I don't want to make a generalization, but if the topic is of interest, I can give you concrete examples how teams, just by doing that mechanism of vote, people were quite aligned on the 4 variables, but there was misalignment in the roles. So some people were saying it's very clear for me, some others were saying no, it's not clear. And to keep a long story short, after a few iterations, they realized that what they believed was one project, it was actually 3 projects, and they split it in 3. But if the vote didn't happen, they would have continued as one project, with all the consequences of misalignment, people having different ideas and so on. And I have like a very long list of examples like that. So the team alignment map in assessment mode, very fast, discuss the perception gaps to reveal the blind spot. And I guess you have an illustration, concrete illustrations in both scenarios for what you described as implicit, in the air, unspoken, unaddressed, 2 very different scenarios, unseen.
Yeah. So, Stefano, thank you for the interesting insights, and thank you once again for taking the time. It was absolutely a pleasure having you here today. And I hope you guys out there had as much as fun as I did. And yeah, I wish you a lovely day. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you to our viewers.